has been looking a little bit better in this matchup lately since the patches. Can Maru stay alive in this tournament and actually get rid of our previous year finalist here in stats? That would be a pretty massive result. All right, looks like game one is loading up here for Disco Bloodbath. Stats versus Maru. Let's get to it, guys. And the top right here in the red, the Protoss player, he is
Slice Stats.
Far left in the blue, the Terran, he is
Jin Air Greenwing, Maru.
Mr. 2018 himself. Started off so strong in 2019 as well. Everyone's had their hopes for that Maru Serral series. We're going to have to keep waiting. It may not happen again. I can't believe it. I felt like we had like a 70% or more higher chance of seeing Maru Serral today.
No, people were already like somewhat happy, but then not happy that it was going to happen today because it was a group stage match and, you know, like maybe the current map or the current balance, like it wasn't ideal, okay? So whatever happened between Maru and Serral didn't really matter. Well, guess what? It didn't even happen, guys. Like, I don't know how cursed this potential matchup is, but it doesn't matter. What does matter is that it's tournament live on the line for both these amazing StarCraft 2 players. And I don't know, man, like, on one hand, I absolutely do believe that Maru can take it here. I believe he can bring the fight to stats. He won their most recent encounter and looked great in doing so. On the other end, Maru in a best of 5 against the Protoss, it's hard not to think back of 2018, where he went up against SOS. I'm like, yeah, SOS, I mean, he's great and all, but this is Maru. Maru's on fire this year. He's gonna crush SOS. That was a bad quarterfinal last year, guys. It was a very one-sided trio with a lot of very questionable decisions and also kind of pretty much symbolized the end of the whole proxy meta, right? I don't believe
that was the last time.
Yeah, I don't believe any Terran proxied anything ever since that series. It's like, whoa, it doesn't work anymore? It's like, no.
I actually remember talking to Terrans at that tournament last year, and at the beginning of the tournament, they were like, this proxy thing is so strong. And then after Maru SOS, they were just like tugging at their collars going, ooh.
It just doesn't work. Like, I don't know why anyone would do it. It's like, how did this ever work in the first place, okay? Like, Protoss players were just not doing it right. But I just hope that Maru can at least bring his A-game here, because then we are in for one hell of a series. Like, we know that both these guys are capable of defeating each other. I think the openings are going to be very important. Maru has those best of 5s from time to time where I feel like if the opening in game 1 doesn't deal damage and he ends up losing it, he becomes more and more desperate to get probe damage in, and it becomes more and more obvious and often makes for more and more lackluster games. So the beginning here, it seems to be a Hellion opening. We have a proxy starport as well. I love that build. He's gonna drop 4 Hellions in the main base of stats. Like, if Maru opens up here and he gets 10 probes, boy oh boy, do we have a series then.
Certainly. I mean, Stats is going Phoenix first here, and that means these units, to be able to actually directly engage the Hellions and take them down is going to be relatively limited. I mean, this is a very quick drop here from Maru. If you have an Oracle first, you can actually zap down those Hellions. I mean, you have to use energy back at home instead of SCVs, but at least you don't lose much.
No, you're spot on there, Maynard. Like, Phoenixes can be great against Hellion openings if the Hellions, like, waste some time, if they're rather slow.
Oh, second Phoenix.
And you can see them coming. Yeah, he's going to go all out on the Phoenix. But the problem is, if you only have 2 Phoenixes in one other unit, like 2 or 3 Hellions will still shoot at those probes, and you only need 3 Hellions to one-shot workers, and he's keeping the Phoenix at home for now because he doesn't want to reveal the fact that he's playing Phoenix. This is gonna get very interesting. Second Phoenix is out, Phoenix number 3 is on the way. What I wonder about is where are the Stalker and the Adept, because it's very important those 2 units are in position, because if they're not, they're rather slow. Wow, is that a tech?
They're moving into the natural, I think.
Banshee follow-up as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, Stargate's pretty decent against that, but here we go. The first play here from Maru is going to be those Hellions. Stats lifting up whatever he can, and this probe split as good as it could possibly be.
But it's still hurting. This really hurts quite a bit already. Phoenixes are doing whatever they can, though. It's only 4 probes so far. Number 5 is going to go down.
No lift energy. And where are the units? Where are the gateway units here from Stats? There they come from the natural, but they were way out the front door there.
Oh, that final shot could hurt as well.
One more. Doesn't quite get it, but 6 probes do go down.
And an insane amount of lost mining time, which I think is something that we have to acknowledge here, because that really did hurt quite a bit. If I'm Maru, I would probably not go for that Liberator, because that's going to get scouted, that's going to get revealed, and this Lib, the only thing the Lib can do is keep the Phoenixes on this side of the map. I love that. Look at that. A cloaked Liberator, man.
Yeah, just trying to bamboozle Stats a little bit here. from Maru. That I doubt he'll let that Liberator finish. That is literally suicidal. So we do have a follow-up for Maru. He's starting to make a bit of a ground army. He doesn't actually have a lot of anti-Stargate countermeasures back at home, and Stats are switching gears as well. Robotics Bay.
But do you know what's great about this is that he's going up to 3 CCs. I would probably start another unit here just to keep those Phoenixes near that starport a little bit longer. Just bait him, because at this point Maru is not losing any SCVs, and eventually Maru is going to lose SCVs to the Phoenix. That's inevitable. But the thing is, if you lose SCVs while you have 55 or 60, it hurts a lot less than when you only have 40 SCVs, right? Losing 5 or 6 when you have 40 SCVs is quite painful. So I really like pretty much everything that Maru has done so far.
Yeah, pretty good for the Terran on paper here. He also has got time to squeeze out a Cyclone back at home, which definitely helps out a little bit. Marines waiting between the main and the natural. And there we go, an opening in the defense of Maru. Gets a few SCVs, leaves with absolutely everything. So good bit of little chip damage there from Stats. A scouting starport, ladies and gentlemen.
This is where you build a Liberator. You assert your dominance.
Right next to the main Nexus.
Yeah,
I mean, if anyone has the gumption for that, it would be Maru, but I don't think it's going to happen here in this game. He just uses scouting information here, seeing what's happening here in Stats' main. All pretty standard of a follow-up. He is going to see the Robotics Bay, so he knows that Colossi, very likely a follow-up here for Stats. And a bunch of Phoenixes with some early game Colossi are pretty tricky for Terran to deal with.
Yep, but Maru already is going up to 3 bases, right? And I think that's the absolute ideal way to play against this, because you're always going to end up losing a couple of SCVs, so having that triple orbital command is very nice. Like running to the other side of the map on a map this large against the Phoenix Colossus opening and expecting to win is highly unlikely unless you can somehow get tanks in a very good position, but he only has a single tank, so we're gearing up for an actual game between these two, and that already makes me very happy, because we have seen plenty of games in the past where it's filled with a mind drop into Stalker counter into game over. That's not going to happen here, Maynard.
Very close in economy here, both Stats and Maru, but as I say that, Stats coming on in there, grabbing a few SCVs, pulling them out of Maru's third. Of course, he still has mules. Looking for those medevacs to be some lovely pickoffs here, actually getting a few of those more expensive units, some SCVs coming through as well.
Yeah, that's going to be hard, right, with that missile turret there. Maru is obviously sending those medevacs towards the missile turret, but this is already nice. He's just being as annoying as possible. Whoa, okay, that was a bit sloppy there, losing the observer to that missile turret. I mean, Stats with a 7 worker advantage is not really an advantage, right? Against the triple orbital, that pretty much means they're dead even, if not minor lead for Maru.
Certainly. Well, just having more and more Colossi here. No second Robo or nothing like that. It's actually going to Twilight Council here. And I believe Stats is just on the single Forge, so this might actually be for Blink. But of course, Charge is a lot more important against those big bio balls.
Yeah, it's funny how that works, because like obviously Zealots can run away from the Colossus and they can just get kited and eventually disappear, but also you want to have something to buffer for your Colossus.
Yeah, Charge loss is so much more important.
I actually really don't hate a second Robo. Okay, there we go. There is a second Robo immediately being dropped, because you want to get an Observer, you want to get a War Prism, but you also want to get a couple of Immortals, because obviously Marauders are fantastic against Colossus, so you want to get some Immortals, but you can't do all of those things with a single Robo, so I truly love the fact that Stats is adding his second Robo.
And there is that Charge with an armor upgrade, still just rocking the one Forge. There's the second one on the way. We've seen behind this, by the way, Maru going into the Ghost Academy, and the first upgrade on that bad boy is now, of course, Enhanced Shockwave to make sure that your Ghosts are blanketing as much Protoss things as possible. You had to remake that Starport back at home, obviously. He's going to double Starport, actually. So, yeah, I can start to deal with these Colossi a little bit easier, whether he goes for a lot of Vikings, goes for a lot of Liberators. Either way, it actually works quite nicely. The Phoenix is, of course, still a very viable threat here for the Protoss. Ghost production has begun for Maru as well. And already Stats getting into Disruptors, which are a fantastic counter to the Ghosts.
Yep, no, that's going to be very hard to avoid those Purification Novas. The only problem that I see for Stats here is that the moment his Colossus disappear, the rest of his army is very underwhelming, right? Phoenixes and just a couple of simple gateway units, they're not going to be able to stand there and fight. So it's basically lose your Colossus and then run, fire Disruptor forward and just run. That's pretty much all he can do at that point. I understand keeping the Phoenixes in a defensive position to make sure that you don't take any damage from potential drops, but I would have loved to see him be a tiny bit more active with the Phoenixes, because he's got an insane amount of energy, and there is always a window of opportunity to get a couple of SCVs here and there.
Just feels like in this game, players have been insanely passive since the early game. Like, yes, the Phoenixes jumped out on in, go through SCVs, they picked up a few things there, tried to get some medevacs, but since then, both players have been chilling on each side of the map, just not really doing a whole lot.
I mean, I like that from Maru, because I think Maru is doing the correct thing. I think Stats could have been a tiny bit more active. I think you can always just have an Observer to scout for potential drops, but the Phoenixes, I mean, they are units with good potential. They always want to fly around, maybe snipe a medevac that just popped, or snipe a Viking. Like, yeah, it's annoying if Stim is done, and Marines can potentially catch your Phoenix. But if you have 8 Phoenixes, yeah, you want to get more than just a couple of SCVs than he got so far.
And Blink is still important here for stats, so you know charge first, heading into Blink, so you can help out against whether it's Liberators, whether it be like a medevac here and there, drops, that sort of thing. Blink, very, very important. Late game, Dark Shrine also being dropped here as he heads through the middle of the map to try and finally poke the Terran and see what he can get done. With Disruptors in tow as well, Maru's force scouts this, where those medevac support, so Maru needs to scramble his defenses.
I'm a bit worried here for stats, but obviously if he can hit one of these Purification Novas out of his Disruptors, then everything is very different. He's bringing the Phoenixes as well, but I would have preferred to see him wait a little bit longer. He's got a lot of good stuff on the way. If you take a look at that production tab, extra Disruptors, 2 upgrades are on the way. I don't think you really want to take a big fight here, and let's be honest, once you start a fight like this, you're committed to the fight. There is no way out of it.
And those Ghosts have got those EMP upgrades ready as well, ready to blanket that Protoss army. There's, well, it looks like 4 or 5 Disruptors here in the army of stats. And there's that first EMP hitting most of the things there of stats. Getting the Phoenixes is nice as well, means that you can't lift up any of those important units on the ground either. So both players really in a bit of a standoff here.
Flanking is amazing.
Yeah.
Flanking is amazing by Maru. Here we go. The Vikings are going to land on these Colossus immediately.
I got some Purification Novas going down the south. That leaves nothing left for the army to the north side, and he's going to get a few of these Disruptors on the retreat. The Colossi are vulnerable as well. Big pickups there for Maru. All those scary tier 3 units of stats. His army have just been completely erased here.
Yep, Stats' army is not capable of fighting. He needs to wait until he can fire again with the Disruptors, but most of them are gone already. EMPs will land once more. That's a fantastic hit on the south side. The second one is pretty good as well, but is that going to be enough for Stats?
Looks a little close here. There's a lot of Stalkers on the high ground. Plenty of bio left over for Maru, though, when those Vikings still ruling the sky. They can be landed to help out with the DPS on the ground as well if Maru wants to commit, and they do just that here. The warp in of charge lots might be enough for Stats to hold on. He does, both players really just getting their armies really erased and reset here.
I mean, 2 upgrades for Maru against the 1-2 or 2-1 rather for Stats here. This makes those Zealots disappear so quickly. I really didn't feel that Stats' army was yet where it was supposed to be. And I don't think maybe he truly wanted to fight. I just think he didn't anticipate the flank. Fantastic move by Maru. Fired all of his Disruptors towards the south side, and that left nothing for that left top side of the screen. Well, like I said, the moment those Colossus disappeared, the rest of the army was just kind of useless for Stats.
Pretty genius flank there. Maru scanning the army of Stats and just closing the vice around Stats. Still putting on a lot of pressure, but not with like a convincing amount of units, so I don't know if he'll be able to break Stats with an army like this. He is, of course, still macroing back at home, getting Fusion Core as well, so we can get into ranged Liberators and make things really hard for Stats. So Stats is, he's not at that point where he can actually deal with a big amount of Liberators here. I like the late game Dark Shrine. He's getting Shadow Stride here, DT Blink. Will that be a factor in this game? I don't know. Nice Nova on the left.
Okay, these Disruptors are starting to really connect and getting a couple of very juicy hits. Maru is just running away, but obviously if you run, you're not dealing any damage. Like, I've seen this in the past before. Maru is very eager to out-micro Disruptors, but I think the real strength of Terran is kind of avoiding those Disruptors, right? You want to start getting a couple of drops in, because the Phoenixes are gone. I believe we have a couple of Observers here and there. But like Disruptors, all that the Protoss wants to do is keep the fight on one screen, just pay attention to your Disruptors and fire those Novas forward one by one. So I think the real challenge here for Maru is to find an opening elsewhere. I mean, this map is massive. You don't always have to fight on only one location.
Trade's been pretty amazing for Maru in this game so far as he goes up to 5 bases. Stats doing the exact same in his bottom right corner. Maru circling around the left-hand side with a small contingent of his force, not the whole army here. So looking to try and hit the economy of Stats while his army is out of position, and it certainly is. There's only a little bit of static defense here.
Yep. Maybe Rico, I think it's very, very close to getting the energy. Wow, just goes straight for the bind and then goes for the Nexus immediately afterwards. One Colossus is not going to save the day. This is exactly kind of what I mentioned, right? Avoid those Disruptors. They are not mobile. They're not very good in multi-pronged defense. Like, all that Disruptors want to do is you want to babysit them and fire them forward one by one. That's why those units are fantastic, but they're terrible when it comes to defending multiple locations.
Maru was a god, best in the world at Ghost Liberator Viking before the buff to the Ghosts. And right now, it is extremely scary of an army comp for Stats to deal with. Now, we do have, of course, the DTs could be a factor in this game. Haven't really seen the detection coverage back at home for Maru. If he can get on top of the production and such, that can be really nice for the Protoss, but he's going to worry about all this army here first, Roddy, and it looks really rough for stats.
Yep, I'm loving it. 7 Liberators already with advanced ballistics. This is incredibly well played. The goals go forward, lands massive EMPs. That seems like he really wants to get the fight
I don't know,
here.
man. I don't know, Kev. This looks really rough. He goes right inside the Freedom Zones, losing a lot of his units there. The Colossus, of course, every single gateway unit blanketed by EMPs. He's doing a little bit of dance here, but Maru is just reinforcing this position, smelling blood in the water. He wants to capitalize and just break the back of Stats' defense right here.
I must say, Stats did a good job there in at least sniping a couple of those Liberators. As our first nuke is on the way as well. +3 armor finally finishing up for the Protoss. Stats still in it, but it's starting to look quite rough.
He's really relying very heavily on these disruptors, and there's no way he can actually defend this. There's just a small pocket of fire going to the right-hand side. He is going to try and recall to get a defense over there, so that is going to actually push back Maru's force. But does that mean that Maru can gain some ground here on the low ground? He's actually going to set himself up for a flank here. All those Purification Novas coming forward. Maru trying to split a big flank forward from Stats. EMP's hit, but of course that doesn't do HP damage, the shield damage. The Colossi in the back line doing some splash damage as well, but plenty of bio still left over from Maru. The reinforcements just too strong. The Liberators even helping up the high ground as well, and Stats has lost everything. GG! Maru takes game number 1 on Disco Bloodbath.
And he did it in a very convincing manner, I'd say. Played an almost perfect game there. Really love it from start to finish. I think he got a lot of damage with his opening. And once again, the openings in TVP are so important to determine how the mid-game plays out in this matchup. And it may not have looked that spectacular, right? Like, people like to do the quick maths often. It's like, oh, 4 Hellions and a medevac. For 6 probes, that's not good. But in the early game, it's super important that your economy stays smooth. And Stats lost so much mining time, and then he was kind of distracted by that starport for a while, while Maru was just like, alright, I'll go triple orbital, and he actually got himself in a very good economic position based upon that opening.
Yeah, there was a lot of time there, and considering how high level that game is, it's really weird to see players this level just kind of chill in their corner on the map for a long time and just allow a player of the caliber of Maru to just macro. Like you said, you wanted those Phoenixes to be more active, maybe, you know, harass the mineral line, force some APM, maybe force some production mistakes. But, of course, being left alone, getting up to 70-odd SCVs, 4 bases, a guy like Maru is never going to just give away a lead like that.
And I'm very happy to see Maru transitioning into Liberators a lot quicker than he's done in some of his previous TVPs, right? It definitely looked good. We're gonna get ready for Game 2 on Acropolis.
And it's up left here in the red of Acropolis. He is
Slice. Stats.
in the bottom right with a great game 1. Can he get a 2-0 lead? He is
Jin Air Greenwing. Maru.
I think an excellent way to start this best of 5 between these two fantastic players. I also think that a moment that we could easily forget about is that first big move out by Stats, right? With his entire army, where he kind of got flanked in the middle of the map. I looked at his army, and it was a big army, but it looked a bit flimsy to me because there were no Immortals in the mix. There weren't that many Zealots. It was mostly just a couple Stalkers, 3 Colossus, but there were a whole bunch of Vikings out. Ghosts were out already. It's just like, all right, this army can only do one thing, and that is fire Novas forward and run. That's the only thing it's good at. But it would be terrible to be forced into a fight. Maru acknowledged that very quickly, and he's like, all right, setting up the flank, and we're going for it. And I think from that point on, it was always going to be a very, very difficult game for Stats.
It feels like when you go for that kind of disruptor style against Terran, you're forgoing the ability to make just a ton of charge lots and not have to worry about them too much. Whereas when you're using Novas, of course, you can blow up your own charge lots, which is the problem. So, you know, the double-edged sword there with the disruptor play. And once you don't have those charge lots, a whole bunch of Marauders with two attacks, or God forbid, 3-3, your Colossi and your disruptors are in big trouble, my friend.
They absolutely were. We'll see if Stats can turn it around for game 2. He's going to be a little active here with his probe. I think he's going for that full wall of as well. All the Protoss players seem to really enjoy this on Acropolis, making it very hard for the Terran to figure out what kind of opening they're going up against.
Yeah, the Reaper's not going to get into that main. Not very easily, at least. Depth on the way there for Stats. And this opening for Maru so far, very, very normal. They're building everything at home. No SCVs out in the map either.
I love how that Reaper went to the Zelnaga. It's like, no.
Nah.
There's nothing to see here anyway. Like, he'd never build anything in range of the Zelnaga. Why even try? He's going to try to get over this wall up, but that ain't gonna happen. There is an Adept now that's being chrono boosted out, and it's always a little bit scary as a Terran player because you're like, let's hope there is no second gate out on the map. You know, you can't be 100% sure. We know that's not the case. Maru is absolutely respecting these Adepts running towards his side of the map because he's throwing up a bunker immediately.
Yeah, he's playing it safe here. You won't see too many
Low
Terrans
HP
trying to skip this Terran.
SCVs.
Oh, gets an SCV kill, and the Adept can, of course, maybe get a Marine or two here and just shade back, but he's going to shade forward into the main base.
Yeah.
It's for a bit of a scout, maybe. Does he let the shade finish? Why not?
There's one SCV that's very low on HP. That's actually so nice, right? Because this is all because of that probe harass early on as well. So the probe is actually assisting a couple of these skills for the Adept. The Reaper does show up, and the Reaper micro is obviously on point. But the second Adept is already making its way into the natural. And Stats being as annoying as he possibly could be.
Now these early game Adepts really don't care about your bunker too much. They'll just shade straight past it. So they do go down. 2 Adepts going down for a handful of SCVs, but just sort of upset the build of Maru. Of course, got a Marine as well. So a little bit of trades from both sides. Relatively expensive opening for Stats, but it's nice to have that damage.
Yep, and it's kind of throwing Maru off as well. And obviously Maru has absolutely no idea about the tech of Stats. And Stats went for the Robo. That's not super common, and a very quick Warp Prism as well. This is one of these games that it could be very quick, very explosive. If Maru picks up his units, puts them in a medevac and sends them to the other side of the map, will he deal damage? Absolutely yes. But can he deal with a Warp Prism and a couple of Gateway units on his side of the map? That could very well become a very big problem.
And just a bunch of Stalkers here with this Prism, or just a bunch of Adepts are going to be very, very tricky for Maru to deal with. He's just going for the ye old Mine opening, and nice little Beyond trick there to grenade the Reaper over the wall in. He's going to get in the main and see the Robo on these gateways.
That was actually a perfectly placed grenade. He actually got over the wall. Now he's going to force a defensive warp in as well, and I think that's the last thing that Stats really wanted. This Reaper, of course, is going to get a probe as well. This is fantastic, and if I was Maru now after this scout, I would not send my medevac out.
Nope.
I would not send my Widowmine out.
In fact, he is doing exactly as you say, Roddy. Leaving the Widowmines at home, he could potentially hit the Prism if Stats isn't paying attention. All right, he's seeing that Widowmine, so Stats very unlikely to dive too deep here. Maru just waiting for him.
And this is very nice for Maru because at least he's not taking any economic damage from this opening. And this is the kind of opening, like I said, it could have been very well game ending. You've seen plenty of PvTs end like this. He's going to pick up the units now, but Stats doesn't know where those mines are. The tank is out. It's going to make his life a little bit easier. It's a tiny bit risky that Maru is already counterattacking, but he's feeling confident with his tank out, and I guess you can't really blame him. Did he observe a spot in medevac?
It may have. It was very, very close. Stats, those gateways off warp in, so he could actually, yeah, he's got some Stalkers at home, but only a
2
couple.
is not enough.
He can boost past that.
Yep, 2 is absolutely not enough to keep this medevac out. Maru is going to go for it. He's going to drop these mines. And then once again, this is already dealing some very decent economic damage.
Yeah, he hasn't killed any probes just yet, but of course forcing the lift off, the pullback from those mineral lines means Stats isn't mining anything just yet until these Widow Mines get dealt with, and obviously no blink means the Stalker goes down. Good bit of denied mining time for the Maru, and he actually, I think, kept the medevac alive as well, which is very, very nice.
Not sure about that. I think the medevac
okay, it did go down the Stalkers, so that's actually not too bad for Stats then.
No, but I mean, in the end, Maru is only down 4 workers, and his command center is almost done, so you gotta be quite pleased with that. So far, this Warp Prism opening did absolutely nothing. I think Maru is playing a pretty damn smart game so far. He's trying to do whatever he can to figure out what is happening. And this game will go on. This is definitely leaning towards a more macro-oriented opening from both players. But once again, things can get very dicey with these early Prisms, and it's not happening.
Goes in the main here. Of course, that tank is a priority target here for Stats, but that Raven gets an interference matrix on that Prism. Nothing gets loaded up, nothing gets unloaded either. So very, very careful here. Stats just pokes and pulls back straight into the Colossi as he gets his third Nexus secured here. And Maru is just looking pretty good here at Economy. Like, you nailed it, Roddy. Yeah. He's looking quite nice.
I mean, he's almost even in workers, and that is a scenario that almost every Terran player out there will sign for. 6 minutes and 40 seconds into a game of Starcraft 2, it's like you're down 1 or 2 workers. It's like, yep, absolutely. With triple orbital, that obviously means that the Terran actually has a economic lead in this game. Now, it's a very quick second robo this game for Stats, even quicker than in the previous game. So he's definitely feeling the heavy robo styles here.
Maru's got a couple early game tanks here. We'll see if he goes further into the tank production or if he just relies a little bit more heavier on the bio. He's been loving that, I mean, like most Terrans have in this matchup, the quicker Ghost Academy, and relying on just a ton of bio, and then, of course, your Starport units later on in the game. Disruptor's already a production for Stats, while the early game was different, the mid game looking very similar here for the Protoss.
Yep, It's funny how he completely skips Immortals. He seems to not really believe in the Immortal, doesn't want to build them. Immortals can be fantastic against Marauders and also really helps you to keep your Colossus safe. But he's like, no, it's a double Twilight Council there for stats. No, that sometimes is on purpose, but in this case, I do not believe it is.
I find it unlikely. It's rare you're going to be able to afford Blink and Charge at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, most of the time this is going to be a slightly slower game as well, so there is absolutely no reason to get a double Twilight. Maybe in the future, you know, in the next patch with all those crazy Twilight upgrades that we got, maybe then it's going to be a little more common. Right now, this is most likely a mistake. We'll see if he can cancel one of them.
All right, Maru sees the army there of stats, sees the Colossi, sees the Stalker count, and he's just going to be more than happy to get that extra starport and start preparing for Vikings.
He's getting both Blink and Charge at the same time,
There it is.
so maybe it was on purpose.
Okay.
It feels a bit odd to me in this phase in the game because I don't think either of those two upgrades is game-saving, but I guess you can say you really want to get Blink to keep your Colossus safe and deal with drops, and you really want to get Stalkers to make, or excuse me, a Charge for your Zealots to make your army a little bit strong in the straight-up fight, but this feels a bit odd. Double Robo into double Twilight?
I mean, if it's deliberate, then great, but
Yeah.
I mean, it might be one of those things where you let the second Twilight finish, and then you're just like, might as well just get the
Yeah,
upgrades.
then you might as well, but
Okay, the Observer does see this drop, and Maru sees that he's been seen.
7 Stalkers being wiped in the main base.
Yeah, don't do that. Pulls back here and is happy to pick off the Observer. Of course, he would love to do a little bit more damage here, but Maru pulls back.
It's pretty crazy that he brings a Raven with his drop, but I really like that actually. That's very smart. Because it happens so often that like as a third player you have no idea that your drop has actually been revealed already or not. And then you throw it on a scan and the Stalkers are barely out of range, you fly into the main base, suddenly 10 Stalkers blink underneath your Medivacs, you lose 2 of them with all the bio units still inside, and it's a disaster real quick.
He's keeping up that CC production as he keeps building starports as well. Zealot coming on in, seeing attack coverage, a little bit of a, I guess like a funnel here with those supply depots. So if a charge lot flank does happen, they do have to go in through a big wall of supply depots, and that is a quick fusion core from Maru.
Yeah, but I like
How
it
many
though.
starports has he got here?
I think he has 2, maybe even 3 at this point, but it just makes sense to me. I feel like a couple of the TVPs we've seen in the past, Maru is like trying to out-micro the Protoss with amazing splits against Disruptors, but the problem is with your splits, you just run away, and if you run forever, you're not really dealing any damage. So I think Liberators with Advanced Ballistics is absolutely the right call, and if I will stats and I would scout that, I wonder, does he go for a Tempest? Does he kind of avoid a Disrupt attack? We'll see.
Just Blink Stalkers feels a little underwhelming in something like this. He does have a lot of Stalkers though.
Yeah, like
Quite a few.
It can work up to a certain amount, right? Like, can you kill 5 Liberators? Yeah, 6, 7, maybe. But the moment it's more than 10 Liberators, you can't blink into that anymore, because Stalkers just fire so much slower. There is massive overkill as well if you right-click on Liberators. So that's just not gonna cut it forever.
Well, this army of stats is pretty scary. The Nova comes forward. He whiffs a little bit. Maru just pulls back. His 4th CC was on location, has to lift it up here to try and repair it. Meanwhile, Maru attacking into the 3rd base here of stats. He does have those defensive warp ins, only losing a shield battery, nothing really consequential there. So both players doing a little bit of chip damage to each other and then pulling back, licking their wounds, ready for a real battle. Stats is continuing to reinforce this. He has a Prism as well, so it looks like he really wants to commit.
Yeah, he's got an insane amount of Stalkers, and he kind of wants to make some magic happen with Stalkers. They're obviously very mobile, and there's always an opportunity to pick off a couple of units. But so far, Maru is absolutely on top of his unit positioning. Look at how well protected this entire location is. Like, how do you break that?
Yeah, attacking to that does not look smart. And of course, Enhanced Shockwave and Ghost Production is beginning for Maru, but he got Advanced Ballistics first. It's very, very fast Advanced Ballistics here for Maru. Stats has a run by going towards the 3rd base, but of course he is converging his forces from that 3rd base defense and also that high ground tier 3 unit force to come together and try and attack into the 4th base. Again, the defenses of Maru just look so hard to crack though.
Yep, especially with just gateway units, but more gates are being warped in. Stats is not showing us any signs yet of wanting to go into Stargate units, into Tempest. I mean, he's building up a bank, sure. He's got a lot of gateways, sure. And if he gets a great fight, this can absolutely work for Stats, but he's playing a dangerous game. Okay, there we go with the Stargate. I like it. I wouldn't mind seeing him start +1 air weapons immediately, and eventually even get a few more Stargates. And a Fleet Beacon, of course.
Once again, Dark Shrine's completed, and once again, DT Blink or Shadow Stride on the way here. Of course, didn't play a factor at all in Game 1, but he did still get it. It's not the cheapest of things to get, but of course, Stats isn't hurting for money here. He is maxed out, Maru as well. So it's about that part of the game where both players want to pick a fight. Maru's going to try and go for some run-bys here as well. Of course, these charge lots see. The one thing that Stats has got going for him is map control. He's got observers everywhere. He's got units parked out the front of every single attack path here for Maru.
Yeah, I'm definitely a bit worried for Stats because I feel like if Maru does decide to move out, right now Maru's army just feels a lot better to me. Now, of course, one Disruptor can absolutely turn a battle upside down, and we've got 8 Disruptors. But if I was Maru, I would start trying to get going a little bit. I don't know if that scan, did he actually catch the Stargate in the main base?
Not sure if he did, but I mean, he's already been producing Vikings and a ton of Liberators anyway, so... Oh, that pylon is powering quite a bit. Down it goes. Forges, at least one of the Forges is still spinning. A little run by here from Maru, relatively inexpensive. Once again, he is maxed out. He does have a bit of a bank. His gas not looking great, but tons of minerals, so he can replenish these units, and he wants to replenish them with a lot more Starport units.
Yeah, well, now at least he spots the Stargate, so he should know that there's a very realistic chance that Stats eventually goes into a few more Stargates.
Oh my god.
What are those?
Orbitals. He's got scans for days. I don't think he puts turrets anywhere in any mirror line. So even if he makes DTs, he's going to be able to scan for 1,000 years. Burn him with scans for the brightness of 1,000 suns.
Does he want to blink on top of these tanks?
I mean, guess.
Blink is almost done. Dark Templars can blink these days, and he is going to blink. I mean, he doesn't even have to.
Oh,
is there no detection here? Okay, scan goes down, but okay, very successful for these Dark Templars.
Snipes go down a couple of his DTs as they try to retreat.
Can he go up there? Seems like the answer is no. That's a lot of Liberators. That's a lot of tanks as well. Maru's army looks mighty fine though, jeez.
Yeah, it's a very technical army. There's a lot of Liberators here, lots of Vikings, plenty of Ghosts as well. And there's that Fleet Beacon, second Stargate as well for Stats. So he is preparing for the anti-Liberator. It's going to take a while before he gets a convincing amount of Tempest out. Picking up a Liberator here, trying to debate him into a Nova, but of course Maru too good for that. He's going to fight him back off this Watchtower and take a little bit more of the map away from the Protoss.
You got to be a little bit careful with these kind of moves if you're Stats, because I know that it looks like he's ultra rich, 5.5k minerals, but it's not really about the minerals, it's a lot about the gas, and Stalkers actually soak up quite a bit of gas, and it's very easy to blink forward, lose 10 Stalkers, rebuild them, but before you know it, you just have no gas at all, and then you can't even build those Tempers. Yeah, this is a sick run by.
Really nice move there from Stats. He blinks in, so he's going to probably lose these DTs. Or at least a few of them. Going to get a snipe on one of those on this return. The concussive shell slowing them down.
My question to you, I wanted to ask, does Maru really mind because he's got so many orbitals? It seems like the answer is yes, because he's building 8, guys. 8 SCVs at a time. One moment there. But he's got 76 workers. Like, if I was Maru, I really...
These 8 SCVs.
Yeah, I really wouldn't mind losing a couple of SCVs at this point.
Alright, well, Stats sees that the defense is surprisingly not here, and that's because they're coming in from the north. These Novas coming forward, getting quite a few of the Ghosts there in the bio.
The Raven is so sick as well. Interference Matrix, most of those Disruptors went down there very quickly. Even though Maru did lose quite a bit of supply, I must say that was pretty sick.
Liberator's still here, of course. Stats does have a bunch of Blink Stalkers, and he's like, oh, there's not actually much protecting these Liberators. He goes in, picks off a few of them here.
That's a really sweet move by Stats. Getting 3-4 libs like that for not much at all. Getting a refinery. He's going to slow the gas come down a little bit. Colossus being very annoying from far away. Maru throws down a scan in the main base, wants to see what Stats is producing. And he will see that these Stargates are not working yet.
Which means he could probably make a few more Liberators, replenish those numbers, and not get punished for it. His ground forces, his bio forces being erased like that really does sting for him. He's going to find it harder and harder to actually stand and fight against the gateway units more than anything. Of course, the Colossi are continuing to be a threat.
I mean, we haven't seen much Zealot spam yet, but with the mineral bank that Stats have, if he does ever get a Warp Prism in the main base, I mean, he can make Zealots for absolute days.
Nope. DT's blink on out of danger there, trying to escape from the bio of Maru. And he is just continuously trying to keep a tab of the main army of Stats, which just is so terrifying here for Maru if he doesn't have his Liberators and his army in position.
Yeah, Maru is close to maxing out once again. We'll see if the next fight goes better for him. Stats is getting those extra air upgrades, so if he eventually does decide to make Tempest, or even Carriers. Carriers are not that bad against Terran if you have Disruptors on the ground and stuff as well, because the #1 counter against Carriers, I think, is Marine. But Marines are not that good if the opponent has Disruptors, Colossus, and very highly upgraded other units. Ooh.
And he gets the Liberators, losing quite a few Stalkers there, though.
Yeah. It's kind of what I mentioned before. Like, I think Stats is playing really well, and I love a lot of the army movement. I think it's very dynamic gameplay. I love how active he is, but you gotta be a little bit careful because that gas bank is not that big. And Stalkers, they are deceivingly expensive.
DT's coming in from the south here. There's a lot of Ghosts and a turret here, so Maru might be able to scan and save this planetary, or not even. The turret not even getting cracked there, and a lot of the DTs died for very little there.
He's gonna warp in 7 more Stalkers. Seems like Stats really wants to get another fight. Everybody's gonna siege up, and we'll get one Disrupted there.
Yeah, Stats is losing a little bit too much here. Like you mentioned, that gas really is, you know, it doesn't look like it, but it is a pretty big, important factor here in this battle. Stats replenishing this force depends on his gas count. So he is coming forward with that army, still taking a little bit more damage from these Liberators. Maru feels confident enough to engage.
Well, those Novas will hit, and this may actually trigger Stats to really go for the fight. He gets a lot of these Liberators immediately as well, but the EMPs scare him off, and he's going to warp in quite a few Gateway units. More and more Stalkers.
Feels so flimsy.
Yep, hey, he's getting Carriers. That's actually really sick. I like Carriers, I really do. Carriers and Disruptors, I think, are a very sexy combo against Terran, because once again, the scariest unit for the Carrier is normally the Marine, but if you have an answer to the Marine, Carriers can get the job done, but of course a lot of Vikings can be somewhat problematic to deal with as well.
And is Maru even considering Marine production here? He's definitely prioritizing Liberators and Marauders because he's more worried about the Colossi, more about the Disruptors, and more worried about the Stalkers. Stats just trying to find a bit more damage here. Of course, that tank still holding on. Maru just feels like he's been on his side of the map for the last 10 minutes, just trying to handle the counterattacks from Stats, the pressure from Stats, as he gets his upgrades, as he gets the composition he wants.
But he's doing that well, though. He's absolutely doing that well. He's building up a little bit of a bank of himself. Stalkers playing forward, getting a lot of these expensive units. I'd say this one was absolutely worth it. Meanwhile, Dark Templars is slicing away at a planetary fortress and a command center there. Maru, you may want to repair this planetary, and he will.
I mean, even if they go for the turret, it doesn't matter because Maru's got scams for days. He goes for his first nuke of the game here. The Nexus of the southwest corner. Looks like the Ghost is going to be able to... Oh, he cancelled the nuke. Okay.
The battle of invisible units over here. Observer gets sniped by the Cloud Ghost.
Well, it's 006 and 007 fighting each other there.
This Ghost finds 5 Disruptors as well. It's like, all right.
Well, that was never going to go well for the Ghost.
You know what's really funny is that Liberators can be good against Carriers, because Liberators are not actually good against the unit, the Carrier, but they're very good against Interceptors. Interceptors like to clump up, and Liberators, of course, have a splash damage attack. So that could be a very interesting battle down the line. Maru once again trying to do whatever he can to save this planetary.
Just doesn't have the heals per second here. The DTs and the Zealots in tandem going to pick off that planetary. Does hurt the economy of Maru a little bit. He has really expanded to the south, though, so it's not terrible for him. He still has an all-right and a bit of income.
Like, Stats can warp in Zealots for absolute days with 5.5k, but he's very, very low on the gas economy. He does not want to lose a couple of bases here. He's going to blink up this ramp. I'm not sure if that's the right choice.
Yeah, he's getting an Archon really, really low here. Those Disruptors getting a little bit close to the front line as well. The Liberators are sieging up. Yes, the Disruptors are getting some Novas off, but he's picking up the Disruptors before the Novas connect.
The Carriers need to start showing up, but now I'm actually not sure if he really has an answer for all of those Marines. At the same time, Stats does not seem to care. He just wants to kill planetaries, and he is doing that, but this game is getting wild. And once again, guys, I know we're repeating ourselves, but look at that gas bank of Stats. It's at 100 at this point.
It's like a heavyweight boxing match right now. Both players just sitting there taking blows. And it looks like I actually favor Maru's position here with the army that he has, the amount of EMPs that he has. Of course, the Carriers could make a difference, but there's only 4 of them, Roddy.
Yeah, and the upgrades are decent on the Carriers. They don't have 3-3 yet. They have got +2 and +2 armor as well. But if you run out of Interceptors, it doesn't really matter. Like, he's banking these Carriers as well. He's kind of saving them. I really look forward to how the Liberators will do. Like, Liberators are terrible against Carriers, but great against Interceptors. So that's going to be a really interesting skirmish.
Nuke does connect with a few of the probes here, of course. Stats' army being zoned back. He cannot go up that ramp and do anything about this position of Maru. Maru's just chilling. He's just hanging out with his army right now, remaking his army back at home, finally dealing with the charge loss of the DTs, which did so much damage to his economy. And here come the Carriers. Can Stats fight back here? Suddenly showing up with a ton of Interceptors. He was so patient. And these Carriers do have 2-2 upgrades, so they are quite convincing, and even the shield upgrades matter here.
Yep, well, Maru decides that he doesn't want to engage that at all. He wants to get his army out, but look at the minimap. Stats is going to try to corner this army of Maru. He's going to try to trap it. Everything is on siege. I like that nuke as well. It's sort of like a defensive nuke. It's probably not going to connect with the Carriers.
Oh, the Carriers are a little bit slow, but yes, they are going to escape the nuke for the most part here. A couple of them might get clipped by that nuke.
I think you're forced to fight there if you're Maru. Actually, it does damage indeed on the Stalkers, but I think you're forced to fight, or at least he's going to just try to survive for as long as he can.
Yeah, he doesn't really have a whole lot that shoots up, so those Interceptors are still mainly staying alive. They're turning and fighting here.
No, those Ghosts
the
are
Ghosts helping a lot.
Bad.
Yeah, they're at dead DPS with 3-3 is quite convincing here.
It seems like eventually he says, like, all right, I should probably focus the Ghosts and the Marines rather than these Marauders.
Yeah, should probably kill the things that actually shoot up here. And you can see in the production tab, as soon as the Carriers got detected, Maru's been primarily making Marines back at home. He already has 16. Losing some of these medevacs does hurt, of course. You know, the longevity of bio, to be able to stim matters how many medevacs you have. But he's been so concerned with Liberator count and Viking count and having Ghosts that he just hasn't got any medevacs left over in his army.
Yeah, both of them lost. Oh, this is kind of an awkward fight, I think, for carriers. One carrier does go down very quickly. The second one takes a lot of damage. That's -2 carriers, and Stats is not that rich anymore. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's super expensive.
That sucks for Stats. He doesn't really have a convincing army. I don't know if he can crack this position of Maru anymore. It looked all right on paper until that moment.
Yeah, that's like just donating 3 carriers like that for pretty much nothing, because he really didn't get much out of there. He does still have a lot of zealots.
So many zealots.
If you guys wonder where did that 5k mineral bank go,
There
there it is. Like 29 zealots on the battlefield at this point for Stats. What a game.
And I mean, you know, a good account of a Marines here with Ghost, of course, for EMPs is actually not too bad against Zealots. So just making a ton of Marines, as long as he can split against the Disruptors, is pretty good for Maru here. Still has a good number of Liberators, of course. They're really well upgraded with 3-2 upgrades. Oh man, I just don't love this here for the Protoss, Roddy. This looks like the Terran. If they clash with everything, the Protoss is going to lose way too much.
I don't love it either, because the only thing that's good in this army against all of these Marines, I would say, are the 2 Disruptors, right? And how likely is it that 2 Disruptors are going to be able to take care of 30+ Marines? Stats is going deep behind enemy lines now, taking care of these missile turrets, but his carriers are taking so much damage.
And here we go. This is probably the last fight in this game as Maru just steps forward with everything, and it's just such an easy engagement here for Maru. The Zealots coming in, but they get EMP'd, and that is just a stem for the win, and Maru is going to be 2-0 up in this series, already on match point. That was a brilliant game too, though. That was very, very close. Of course, it did snowball towards the end in Maru's favor, but like I said, it was a heavyweight boxing match, just blow for blow, really entertaining TDP.
Maru played it perfect. I really think he played it perfect. He knew exactly where he was at in that game at any given moment. And yes, he was a defender, but he wasn't really taking much damage. And Stats was investing an insane amount in all those gateway units, but he never really found the openings that he was looking for. All those Stalkers, what did they really accomplish in the end? Not that much. Then remaxing on the Zealots. I mean, Zealots are not going to be good against Marine Ghosts in that phase in the game. And Liberators as well, backing them up. Just a really, really smart, well-played game by Maru. And if I compare this Maru to the Maru a while ago, that lost a couple of one-sided TVPs, it just feels like he's way more on point with his transitions.
And if we take a step back and look at where we are, Roddy, we are actually one map away potentially from losing the grand finalist of the 2018 Global Finals.
Yeah, it's not supposed to be like that.
No, it's not supposed to. I mean, also, Maru's not meant to be eliminated from this group either. If if all the analysts and all the guys predicting at home, if all those dreams come true with all their numbers and all the number crunching that people like to do at home.
And
but
I mean, to make things even more bizarre, the finalist of WCS 2018 Global Finals has not won a map so far. He's 0-5 at the Global Finals. And you don't really make this up, Haley.
Oh, that's crazy. That is actually insane. Of course, Stats are looking really, really good this year, all things considered. He's here for a reason, of course. You know, the kid has accumulated enough points to get himself a seat in an incredibly scary group. I mean, no one's happy about getting this group. Not a single person in this group is happy about this group. The only one that's breathing easy tonight is Cyril at the moment.
And just a couple of months ago, Stats went over to Finland and he won Aces ROG there. Defeating Cyril in the semifinals, defeating Solar in the finals, looked as good as ever. He has struggled a little bit in some of the Korean tournaments, but he's still done well. I mean, let's not pretend that this has been a bad year for Stats, because if it was a bad year, he wouldn't have been here in the first place. Exactly. So he gathered plenty of points, but so far it's definitely looking a lot more grim than it did last year when he went all the way to the grand finals and made it a very close grand finals against Cyril. So far it's a rough day, 0-5.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm going to be cheering for Stats in this next game because I do not want a 3-0 Rotterdam.
No, I mean, like, that Zero has a couple of 3-0s, like, that's okay, that's Zero. But other than that, yesterday, 3-2s, 3-1s. We started off the day with a very close 3-2 as well. We don't want to get 3 3-0s in a row. That's too much.
God, the champ looks good, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
Cyril looks so good.
He looks so good. I don't even really want to talk about Cyril too much. Because
no, I mean...
No, it's like, it will come. It will come. Let's talk about everybody else.
One more thing before we do move on. When I saw Cyril throw up his arms and pump and put his arms up in the air, I'm like, I think we're going to be seeing a bit more of that in the next few days.
Yes, it must be nice for him as well to come to Korea and then show up, play 6 maps, and it's like, I'm done until next week in America. That's actually a pretty pleasant tournament to play like this. Explore Korea a little bit, maybe play some of that Korean ladder, you know, get a little bit of extra practice in.
Well, of course, it is still stressful for the other 3 players in the group. Time waiting to see whether or not he has to place Maru or Stats here. And Stats against the ropes, he's got to win. He's got a reverse sweep here. Nothing but 3 maps in a row is going to be able to save him in this tournament.
And he's got to step it up. Like, I feel like if you make that many units as a Protoss player, you got to go find for openings. You got to be a little bit crazier. Like, we haven't seen a single War Prism get into the main base yet, right? And
he tried.
And if you are that rich, though, like, get War Prism speed. Send 2 Prisms into the main base for all I care. If you have that many gates, you got to be a little more active. Because normally it feels like the Terran is stuck on Marine Marauder while Protoss is stacking up. And now it kind of feels that Protoss is somewhat stuck on Simple Tech while Maru is getting the Dream Army. And obviously this is so much better from Maru than some of the things we've seen from him in the past. Where it's just like, yes, your micro is amazing with Marines and Marauders, but eventually you need a little more. Well, he's showing us right now that Terran does have a little more.
He certainly does. Even when Terran were having a trouble in this matchup, Maru was the guy that figured it out. He was like, you get a lot of Vikings, a lot of Liberators, a lot of Ghosts, and unfortunately you also need my mechanics. But if you have all those things, you can deal with anything the Protoss can throw at you. Let's get into the next game, guys. Maru vs. Stats, Game 3. And the bottom right is really against the ropes. He's going to need your energy. He is.
Slice. Stats.
Do not believe the 2018 runner-up hasn't won a map yet. What is this world we're living in? And in the top left here on match point, he is.
Jin Air Green Wing. Maru.
Both players with tons of fans here in the studio.
You know, in general, I would say that I'm a big fan of aggressive players, right? And not necessarily all-in, but I just like players that are out there, that are looking for openings, that are trying to make something happen in a game of Starcraft 2. But I feel in the past, some of these players, sometimes they've been aggressive for the sake of just being aggressive when they really don't have to, or there is simply no room for it based upon, you know, the way that the game started off. And I feel that Maru is doing this absolutely perfect so far. He's been very patient in both games after the initial phase. And it makes sense, right? Because it was the right thing to do. As a Terran player, you want to get out, you want to multitask, you want to drop. But if your opponent has a million Gateway units, a million Stalkers, Colossus, and Observers all over the place, don't commit, don't be stubborn, and don't try to force it. And I think Maru is actually playing a very mature best of 5 so far.
And he's actually, you know, most Terrans, they want to go for a Widowmine drop, they want to go for a +1 attack timing and really commit up the ramp of the Protoss to try and avoid getting to the late game. And Maru just seems to not care. He's just like, I'm going to send Widowmines, but that's going to be it. You're going to see a Marauder and some Marines every now and then to try and poke your next side and your fresh bases. But I'm going to chill. I'm going to get my 3-3. I'm going to get my tier 3. And we're going to fight in the late game.
Yep, Gateway units are good, Colossus are good, but so are Ghosts and Advanced Ballistics Liberators.
As you say, Roddy, that new EMP, the radius of the sun.
I would never say such an outrageous thing, Maynard.
I do believe that is a direct quote. But, just checking my notes here. I have a printed out notebook of everything you've ever said.
All right.
I'm on page 7,000.
Can't confirm or deny. I mean, it is pretty big.
Reaper expand here. Of course, on Thunderbird, you can't really get rid of the Reaper as easily, so as on Acropolis. So the Reaper going to come on here and have a little bit of a look, a little bit of a poke, and Maru is just doing a very standard build back at home. And very quickly in a Twilight Council is Stats this time.
Yep, so it's another different opening so far coming out of Stats. We saw the Stargate in Game 1, the Robo in Game 2, now it's the Twilight, and this Twilight is going to get scouted immediately as well. I'm expecting this to be a very standard Blink opening, just a defensive Blink opening with a Robo.
Oh.
Reapers are so annoying.
That thing is slippery. Covered in butter.
Might get a probe here as well. Maru wants to play it safe.
Just keep in mind, guys, that Maru is the guy who actually went toe-to-toe with an Adept and killed it with the Reaper way back when.
There it is, it's going to be the Blink opening, so this is most likely going to be a rather defensive opening. Maybe Stats feeling that the hyper-aggression is not really working out for him, and Maru's just scouting in pretty much in a perfect way. Whoa!
Might be a Banshee opening.
Raven, I think. Yeah, I think Raven makes more sense.
Safety plays.
What is this all about? Is it going to be super aggressive? Like, imagine if he goes 4-gated rather than a Robo. Well, he's starting Cloak, but it could be fake.
Well, I mean, you could go into medevac and then get the Banshee afterwards. Yeah. But you know, Stats of course is going to want to make sure whether or not that actually is a Banshee opening, so it does make a difference in how he wants to play this out. Yeah, I'm worrying about this pylon as well. What is the plan here for Stats? Gateway pressure? Question mark?
Yep. I mean, maybe, because he is getting blinked. There we
there
do
it
have
is.
it. Proxy Gateway. This could actually be quite cool, because if Maru does commit with his medevac and he ends up losing the medevac, there's our Raven. Like, imagine, Stalker's defense, Stalker's blink. He's been chrono boosting blink as well, don't forget about that. So blink is going to be done very quickly. Could maybe be done around like 445 to 450. If you snipe the medevac, then basically the world is your oyster when it comes to counterattacking, because you have nothing to worry about anymore. And that proxy gate could come in handy for the people that haven't played Starcraft in a little while. In the old days, every warp in was the same. These days, pylons give you slow warp ins, but if you connect your pylon to a nexus or a warp gate, you get much faster warp ins, and that's why we like the proxy gateways these days.
People stop playing StarCraft? What?
Yeah, every now and then, you know, people get busy, they get kids and stuff. I guess kids are important.
Oh, we can be 100% sure that they always come back. We have the drop here for Maru going to the main base. Shield battery doesn't do a whole lot to help here, of course. That looks like he was expecting a Banshee. Ooh, that is unfortunate. That always stings when you're as a Terran player myself. That never feels good. Maru's realized what's up here. He's getting an extra few bunkers, one on the high ground, another one on the low ground as well. The blink attack is about to commence.
I think he has mostly to worry about the main base, though. I don't think that Sess is going to try to break the natural. And that Stalker could have blinked, couldn't it? Well, I'm surprised it didn't blink. He's going to unload the Widow Mines here once again.
Yeah, he's a little bit off cooldown, so he does have time to be able to warp in defensively. And there we go, a big blink in the main base. Maru does have that Raven with a handful of Marines, but of course Stim is away from being done. He doesn't have a tank just yet either. Oh, the Raven!
Well, he doesn't get it yet.
Oh, I thought he had that 100%.
But this is already still a very good fight for stats, because, I mean, these Marines are just not dealing that well. Now, high ground vision is denied for a little bit. 8 probes went down in the main base. Maru's doing such a good job in keeping these drops alive. Another hallucinated Phoenix, and there is an observer. So there is high ground vision. But stats needs a lot more than he's done so far, Maynard, because he's still down in workers, and now there is a tank out as well.
Yeah, this is extremely committed from stats. All Maru needs to do in this game is just hold on and not die. Blinks forward for the tank there. SCV's trying to repair. He doesn't get the tank. Maru's losing some fewer SCVs, but of course this is an all-in from stats. He's going to do more than this.
Oh my god, I mean, he got the tank in the end, but geez Louise, that was painful. There was a lot of Stalkers going down. Stats still wants more. Is he going to wipe in more Stalkers?
Oh, the Raven kept the Observer.
Yep. I mean, Stim is almost done, by the way. So the next time you blink in, you're blinking into Stim. There are a couple of Marauders. There's another tank. CG comes. Well, no, you can't go for this blink. There is a tank. There's a tank.
Oh, he's going to go for it, but the tank's going to do so much damage to these Stalkers, which are already battered and bruised. And of course, Maru has medevac support, which not much enemy, but he does have Stim as well. And Stats is getting pushed back again. Kill the Observer.
That was a blink
there
too far.
We go.
And now the Observer goes down as well. I can't believe it. Stats is not getting very fortunate here either. He was so close to getting the Raven, didn't get it. And then he almost had that tank immediately, and he didn't get it. And that tank fired like 3 or 4 more times. And that's so painful when you blink Stalker all in.
Well, he's trying to do it again. I mean, he has to. He's committed to this point. His tournament life is on the line. And Maru just still holds on. And that is going to be that, ladies and gentlemen. Maru with a 3-0 sweep over the last runner-up of the Global Finals. And he will stay alive in this group for a rematch against Time in the Deciders match. A very dominant series from Maru. Stats tried to go into the mid-game pressure. He tried to go to the late game. He tried to go for early game all-ins. None of it worked.
The Maru versus Serral dream is still alive, Maynard. Maybe just a little down later. It may not happen in Korea, but now it can still happen in America. I mean, a fantastic best of 5 by Maru. I really don't think we can expect him to play any better than that. Stats, I think it was a combination of getting a little unfortunate and maybe a couple of bad decisions here and there as well.